I'm Lucy Hawkins. Our top stories: hands up, don't shoot, and I'm choking. The chance at demonstrations in New York as another grand jury clears a white police officer of killing an unarmed black man. This video shows Eric Garner being choked to death and telling officers he can't breathe. The Attorney General says there will now be a civil rights investigation. We're counting down to the liftoff of Orion, the spacecraft that could one day carry us to Mars, and we will bring that to you live as it happens from Cape Canaveral. A defiant State of the Union address from President Putin. He accuses the West of trying to bring down Russia.
Even if the events in Ukraine didn't happen, they would have come up with a different motive to restrain the growing potential of Russia.
Also on the programme, Aaron is here. President Putin pretty defiant about the economy as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Lucy. It is an economy that's speeding towards recession. The value of its currency, the ruble, has fallen off a cliff, and those lower oil prices means Russia is losing billions of dollars every single day. But the president says those Western sanctions, they're a stimulus for the economy, and in fact will make Russia much more self-sufficient.
It's midday here in London, 7 a.m. in Washington, and also in New York, where there have been overnight protests after another police officer has been spared prosecution for killing an unarmed black man. Thousands of people disrupted New York City traffic following a grand jury decision not to indict Officer Daniel Pantaleo for killing Eric Garner after placing him in a chokehold. This is a restraint that is banned by the NYPD, and the U.S. Justice Department now plans to launch a civil rights investigation into what happened. The BBC's Ben Bland has more.
Ben Bland, BBC News.
Well, people in the United States have turned to Twitter to vent their anger over the grand jury decision. White Americans have been listing crimes that they've committed and got away with after being caught by police. The hashtag criming while white is trending around the country. Cicely Kellogg of New York tweeted, "I stole a car with my friends and drove it for 2 weeks before we got busted. The only one charged was black." Stephanie Mullen from San Diego said, "I was pulled over for driving under the influence and should have gone to jail. But instead, he drove me home to make sure I got there safely." And Joel Watson from Texas tweeted, "I shoplifted when I was 14. They let me go because my parents came down and we looked like a nice family." Well, Eric Garner's friends and neighbours have gathered in protest on the Staten Island sidewalk where he died. Let's hear from a few of them now. Well, that was the view there from some people in Staten Island. We've got so much more for you on our website, including details on that chokehold restraint and exactly why it's been banned by the NYPD. That's at bbc.com/news. Now, there's a huge amount of anticipation at the moment in Cape Canaveral. NASA saying that this is a major event about to take place. We are talking about the launch of Orion, but I have some news here just coming into us at the BBC that there has been a delay in the launch. We were expecting it to happen about a minute ago, but our correspondent Jonathan Amos is there watching, and he said there has been a delay in the launch time. We don't know any more, although we did get news a short time ago that a boat had drifted into a zone that it wasn't meant to be in, so they've got to move that boat. Actually, news just coming in now from NASA. We're expecting this launch to take place in 10 minutes' time. We will bring that to you live here on BBC World News. But hugely significant because Orion is the spacecraft that could one day see us travelling to Mars, and it's taking off on its maiden test voyage. We can see it live now. News just coming to us that will happen in 10 minutes' time, and we will bring that to you live. Let's bring you up to date with other news now, though. Survivors of Typhoon Haiyan, which devastated the Philippines a year ago, are preparing for a powerful new storm. Typhoon Hagupit is currently building strength in the Pacific Ocean. It's expected to make landfall on Saturday. Wind gusts could reach up to 170 kilometres an hour. Experts say it seems that regular storms in the region have shifted course over the past few years. Federal police and soldiers in Mexico Mexico are to take over public safety from local police in the coastal tourist resort of Acapulco and 36 towns across 4 states. They are in a region known for high levels of crime and violence. The move follows a wave of anti-corruption protests following the disappearance of 43 students in Guerrero State, which has been blamed on local police. Scientists here in London have begun the most detailed analysis ever carried out of this. It is the skeleton, of course, if you know your dinosaurs, of a stegosaurus, which they have nicknamed Sophie. They hope the near-complete fossilised remains will help them discover how much the dinosaur weighed, how it moved, and what it used its distinctive back plates for. Sophie is on display right now at the Natural History Museum. The American comedian Bill Cosby has been urged to waive his rights under the statute of limitations so the courts can hear new allegations of sexual assault. 3 women have gone public with claims that he groped and assaulted them, but the alleged incidents happened more than 30 years ago, too long ago for the cases to come to trial. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has attacked the West for what he says is a hypocritical and cynical attitude over the conflict in Ukraine. Speaking in his annual address to Parliament, he said that sanctions against Russia would still have to have been imposed, even if events in Ukraine had not happened. He's accused Western states of trying to subdue Russia's growing power.
Если бы всего этого не было.
Thank you very much for joining us from Moscow. Do stay with us here on BBC World News. Still to come, we're getting closer to liftoff. This is the scene live at Cape Canaveral as NASA prepares to revive its glory days and launch a mission to Mars. Welcome back to GMT. Well, we've got lots of pairs of eyes on Cape Canaveral right now. This is the live shot we have coming in from Florida because we are waiting for the launch of Orion, the spacecraft that could one day see us travel to Mars. Imagine that as a holiday destination. Now, this was meant to happen about 10 minutes ago. We keep getting news of delays. Firstly, there was a boat offshore that wasn't in the right place at the right time. Now we are hearing that there are problems with the ground wind at Cape Canaveral. Of course, conditions have to be absolutely perfect for Orion to take off, but we're keeping a close eye on it, and as soon as we get news of liftoff, we will take you back to Cape Canaveral live. Let's talk more now about the defiant State of the Nation address from President Vladimir Putin. It happened just a few hours ago in Moscow. With me now is our diplomatic correspondent, Bridget Kendall. Bridget, it is extraordinary that Russia is heading for recession. President Putin's popularity remains so high. What did he announce today in terms of tangible efforts to try and revive the economy?
Well, he didn't hide the fact that they're in trouble. And they are heading for recession. I mean, the Russian economy wasn't doing so well before the whole Ukraine crisis, so it's certainly been intensified by sanctions. He made that point. He came up with some quite specific things. He's talking about immunity, a one-off immunity for anyone, Russian presumably, who's prepared to repatriate their money from offshore accounts back into Russia. Capital flight this year is thought to possibly top 100 billion. It's an absolutely staggering amount. So he's saying, no, bring your money home. I don't know how many people will take him up on that. Also, he's saying a 2-year tax and an inspection holiday for new start-up small businesses. The small business sector in Russia is very, very small, and this is an attempt to try and jump-start it. So that would be very welcome to them. He said the central bank and the government are going to try and crack down on speculators who are trying to make money out of the ruble's fall. Not at all clear how they can do that and what that means. And he talked about huge new infrastructure projects that he thinks the government should invest in, the country should invest in. He talked about doubling the number of roads in Russia. It certainly needs the roads. The big question is, where's all this money going to come from? So grand projects, some specifics to try and solve the immediate economic problems. But I think the big question about this speech was, on the one hand, you have this aggression towards the West, but we're still open for business, we still want partnerships. On the other hand, he's saying Russia needs to go it alone. If it's going to solve its problems, diversify its economy, then it's got to do it. Shouldn't rely on dangerous foreigners. But at the same time, he says we're not going to be isolationists, we're not going to be xenophobic. So what does he mean? It's a bit hard to tell exactly which way he's going to go.
Bridget, what are you hearing from Chechnya? Because we have had news today of what President Putin is calling a terrorist attack. Very dramatic pictures. This is Grozny that we're seeing now. Security forces and rebels involved in heavy exchanges of gunfire overnight. And Bridget, the latest we have here is that possibly 10 police officers have been killed. Was this an attempt to embarrass President Putin before his State of the Union address?
That's always possible when you think of the timing. I mean, trouble rumbles on in Chechnya and the North Caucasus. It doesn't get into our global news that often. This is a much bigger attack, and that's why we're noticing it. President Kadyrov of Chechnya says everything's under control. We wait and see. I think what will be interesting to see is whether this is just a one-off, a particular attack by insurgents which was particularly successful, or whether it's the start of a pattern. There's no evidence of it, but I think many people will be wondering if this is a return of insurgency to Chechnya. Could it be as the result of airstrikes on the so-called Islamic State in Syria, where we think that there were certainly among some of the jihadist groups, Chechens involved? Have they gone home, these insurgents who are fighting jihad in Syria and possibly Iraq, and now they've gone back to the North Caucasus? That would certainly be something which would worry President Putin. It's only a thought at the moment, but if there's a pattern of these attacks, then it'll be something I think people will look up more closely.
OK, Bridget, thanks so much for joining us. Let's return you now straight to Cape Canaveral. We are still waiting for the launch of Orion, and watching it very closely for us is Jonathan Amos, who is in Florida. What's going on, Jonathan? Why have we not seen a launch yet? No, Jonathan's not there. He was there a moment ago. We hope to return to him. But I can tell you, I think the latest we're hearing is there are problems there with ground wind. Now, this was meant to happen about 15 minutes ago, but NASA always say they need perfect conditions for any kind of launch, and they won't be taking any chances with this one because the head of NASA has come out and said that this is a major event, this launch. This is the launch of a spacecraft that could one day see humans travel to Mars. It was planned that it would orbit Earth twice before splashing down in the Pacific Ocean after a 4-hour flight. That splashdown, of course, very significant. They'll be looking to see how the parachutes work there. So lots of focus on this scene at Cape Canaveral. We'll attempt to return to Jonathan Amos shortly because he really is in the know. He's been keeping us up to date with what is happening there. We'll take you back there shortly. The ashes of a British World War I veteran will be reburied in Israel after a state funeral attended by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. John Henry Patterson was every inch the British hero as a decorated cavalry officer, but he became a hero of the Israeli cause too, and his reburial will be the final act of an extraordinary life, as Kevin Connolly now reports.
Israel.
Well, let's take you back to Cape Canaveral. We're still watching Orion very, very closely now, NASA's unmanned space capsule that we're expecting to blast off, but we're hearing there's a red alert there. Jonathan Amos is watching events. What's happening, Jonathan?
Oh, Lucy, it's been a bit of a frustrating morning so far. They got very, very close to launching, just 3 minutes and 43 seconds away. And then they had a problem with the weather. Gusting winds meant that they couldn't lift off at that particular time. So they're just waiting and watching now to see if those winds will settle and Orion can get off.
So, Jonathan, it could happen then sometime in the next few hours, do you think?
They've got a couple of hours in which to play with. One of the keys is that this capsule will come down into the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Mexico, and they need to be sure that the lighting conditions there are fine for divers to go into the water and sort of recover the vehicle. If it gets too dark, that becomes dangerous. So that's one of the key constraints. So they won't go on longer than more than 2 hours now today before saying, let's come back tomorrow.
OK, Jonathan, we'll return to you when and if it happens. Thanks so much. Do stick with us here on GMT.